The card declined 3 times before Elara realized she had exactly $4.37 to her name.
Before we dive into this story, I have one question. Have you ever been publicly humiliated or watched someone else get torn down while everyone just watched? If you believe people deserve to be treated with dignity no matter what's in their bank account, hit that subscribe button. Let's build a community that actually stands up for what's right.
The baby formula, Similac Pro Advance, the kind pediatricians recommend, the kind that doesn't make her 6-month-old daughter Amara scream through the night, cost $32.50. Behind her, 8 people waited in line at Vanguard Grocers. In front of her, a cashier's pitying smile said everything words couldn't. And that's when the influencers started recording. Elara stood there in her navy sweater with a small stain on the shoulder, jeans with frayed hems, scuffed white sneakers. The baby carrier was strapped across her chest, Amara sleeping peacefully against her heart. She didn't see the woman in the pink designer dress pulling out her phone behind her. Not yet. The cashier, a kind-faced woman in her mid-40s, asked gently if she'd like to try another card. Alara's voice came out quiet, exhausted, as she explained that was her only card. She'd just been paid yesterday. She didn't understand what happened. Then she checked her phone. The banking app showed an unexpected charge. Emergency room visit, $387.63. Her daughter had spiked a fever last week. She'd taken her in at 3 in the morning, terrified, and the doctor had said it was just a virus, gave them children's Tylenol, sent them home. The bill had arrived electronically while she slept. Elara's voice caught as she apologized to the cashier. Maybe she could come back tomorrow? The cashier started to reassure her, to tell her not to worry. But then a voice from behind her, loud and theatrical, cut through the quiet moment. "Oh my God, is this really happening right now?" Elara turned.
We've all seen this, right? Someone turning another person's pain into content. Real question, do you think Tiffany deserves what's coming to her? Comment yes if you think karma is about to catch up. Comment no if you think she's just creating content. Let's see where we stand.
The woman standing behind her was everything Elara wasn't. Blonde hair in perfect waves, makeup that probably cost more than Elara's rent, a pink designer dress that still had the crease marks from being recently unpacked, Louis Vuitton bag, statement jewelry that caught the fluorescent lights, and most importantly, a ring light on a mini tripod positioned to capture both of them. The woman addressed her phone camera with practiced brightness, her influencer voice cutting through the store. "Hey fam, Tiffany Lux Life coming at you live from Vanguard Grocers, where we're witnessing peak broke behavior. You guys seeing this?" She zoomed the camera in on Elara's face. Elara instinctively turned away, hand coming up to shield Amara from the phone's glare. This was the thing about Humiliation. It had an audience now. 8 people in line, all with phones of their own. 3 of them were already recording. A teenager in the makeup aisle had her phone up, capturing the scene. 2 business casual types were filming while pretending they weren't. The grocery store manager hovering near the customer service desk looked uncomfortable but didn't intervene. That's the thing about cruelty. It feels safer when you're in the crowd. When everyone's watching, no one's responsible. When everyone's filming, someone else will surely speak up, right?
Here's the uncomfortable truth. 8 people watching, multiple phones recording, and nobody helping. And if you're thinking, I would have helped, I want to believe you. I really do. But studies show that the more people present, the less likely anyone is to intervene. It's called the bystander effect, and it's why stories like this matter. Be honest, have you ever been the person in the crowd, not the bully, not the victim, but the one who just watched? Drop a heart if you promise to be different. Drop a comment if you've been there.
The influencer, her name tag would later reveal she was Tiffany Westbrook, 28 years old, 2.3 million Instagram followers, stepped even closer, invading Elara's personal space. She spoke directly to Elara now, voice dripping with false concern. "Excuse me, sweetie, quick question for my followers." She tapped Elara's shoulder, actually tapped it, like Elara was a prop in her content. "If you can't afford the gold label lifestyle," she gestured dramatically at the formula tin, Maybe try the dollar store. Like, you're literally holding up real people with places to be. Behind them, someone in line muttered agreement, a man in business casual. Come on, we've all been waiting. A woman scrolling through her phone. She should have checked her account before coming here. Not one of them told Tiffany to stop. Not one of them said, hey, leave her alone. Not one of them pointed out that poverty wasn't a spectator sport, that financial struggle wasn't content, that this young mother with a baby strapped to her chest deserved basic human dignity. Elara's jaw was tight. She was fighting tears, not of sadness, but of rage. That metallic taste in the back of her throat, the heat spreading across her face. She'd felt this before, standing next to Viktor at galas where women in diamonds looked through her like glass. This was why she'd left his world, wasn't it? To avoid being watched, judged, measured against impossible standards. But poverty had its own audience, its own stage, and the performance was just beginning. She told the cashier she'd put the formula back. Her voice was steady despite everything. She was sorry for the wait. She reached for the formula tin, but Tiffany grabbed her wrist, actually grabbed it, held it up for the camera like evidence. Her smile was huge, practiced, perfect for the ring light. Wait, I have a better idea. She paused for dramatic effect, letting the live stream count tick up. 18,000 people were watching now. I'm feeling generous today, fam. Charitable, you know? I'll pay for your formula. Another pause. Elara could feel what was coming. Some part of her, the part that survived 6 months alone with a baby and 2 jobs and never enough sleep, knew this wasn't going to end well. If, Tiffany's smile grew wider, you do something for me first. The store went quieter. Even the music seemed to fade. Bark like a dog.
Okay, I need to know. What would you do in Elara's position? Your baby needs formula, you have no money, some influencer offers to pay if you humiliate yourself on camera. Do you do it for your child or refuse and protect your dignity? Comment bark if you'd do it for your baby. Comment never if you'd refuse.
Tiffany laughed, light and cruel. Bark 3 times for my 2.3 million followers, and I'll pay for your baby formula. Easy peasy. Complete silence. Even the teenagers stopped laughing. Even the business casual types looked uncomfortable. This had crossed a line, the line between mean and monstrous, and Tiffany danced on the wrong side of it, phone camera rolling, waiting for content that would go viral, waiting for humiliation complete enough to be monetized. Elara stood there, Formula 10 in one hand, the other supporting Amara's sleeping weight. She looked at the formula. $32.50. She had $4.37. She looked at her daughter, whose mouth was slightly open in sleep, making those soft breathing sounds that meant she was peaceful, content, trusting that her mother would take care of her. For one horrible, shameful second, Elara actually considered it. That's what poverty does. It makes you calculate your dignity's worth. It makes you weigh your self-respect against your baby's needs. And baby formula at $32.50 feels like a lot when you have $4.37. But then she thought about Amara growing up, Amara learning how the world worked, Amara watching her mother bark like a dog because a rich woman wanted content. What lesson would that teach her daughter about strength, about dignity, about standing up when everything in you wants to fold? Elara looked directly at Tiffany. Her voice was quiet but clear. No. Tiffany blinked, surprised. What? Louder now. I said no. You don't get to humiliate me for your content. I'm a person, not your punchline. Murmurs through the crowd. Some approval, some surprise.
If that gave you chills, smash that like button. Elara just chose her dignity over her baby's immediate need. That takes a kind of strength most of us will never need. If you're rooting for her, and I know you are, subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because trust me, what's coming is worth it.
The teenager filming in the makeup aisle lowered her phone slightly. One of the business casual types looked ashamed. But Tiffany, she was incredulous. She turned to her camera, to her 18,000 viewers. Can you believe this? I offered charity and get attitude? This is exactly why. She stepped even closer. Phone practically in Elara's face. Her nice girl influencer persona was slipping, revealing something uglier underneath. You know what your problem is? You think you deserve better than what you can afford. Like, reality check, honey. She poked Elara's shoulder again, harder this time. People like you are why people like me have to wait in line. Maybe if you'd made better choices, her eyes flicked down to Amara, you wouldn't be begging for baby formula. Something shifted in Elara's face. The tears threatening to fall, they were still there, but now they were backed by something harder, something that wouldn't break. She told Tiffany, voice low and clear, "Don't touch me again." Tiffany laughed mockingly. "Or what, you'll call your lawyer? Oh wait, you can't even afford formula." Then she did it. She reached out, pushed past Elara dismissively, and knocked the formula tin from the checkout counter. It rolled across the floor toward the exit, clattering on tile. A dramatic, insulting gesture, making Elara not just poor, but powerless, not just struggling, but beneath even basic respect. Tiffany turned back to her camera. Oops, so clumsy. Anyway, fam, this is what happens when... Elara's voice, when it came, was different. Not quiet anymore, not apologetic. It had an edge in it, a strength that came from 6 months of surviving alone, of working 2 jobs, of waking up every 3 hours to feed a crying baby, of choosing to leave a man who could have made all of this easy because she refused to lose herself. Elara told Tiffany, voice low and clear, "That formula is for my 6-month-old daughter. She has acid reflux. Regular formula makes her scream for hours. Do you understand that? She's a baby. She didn't ask to be poor. She didn't make any choices. She's just hungry." Tiffany's smile faltered slightly. This wasn't playing the way she wanted for her stream. Elara kept going, voice getting stronger. "You're going to humiliate me? Fine. I've been humiliated before. I've stood in welfare lines. I've worn the same 3 outfits for 6 months. I've skipped meals so Amara could eat. But I won't bark for you. I won't perform for your audience, because the only thing I have left that's mine is my dignity, and you can't afford that." Some people in line were nodding now. An older woman said quietly, "Good for her." The teenagers looked uncomfortable, phones lowering. The cashier was watching with tears in her eyes. For a moment, just a brief, shining moment, Elara thought maybe she'd won. Maybe standing up would be enough. Maybe the crowd would shame Tiffany into backing down. Maybe basic human decency would prevail. But Tiffany's face had gone hard. Her influencer mask slipped completely, revealing the insecurity underneath, the need for control, the desperation to win, especially when she was wrong. "You think you're better than me? You're standing here in Target clearance clothes, can't pay for groceries, baby daddy nowhere to be found." Her voice was venomous now, cruel. "And you think you get to lecture me?" She stepped forward aggressively, pointing a manicure finger in Elara's face. "I made myself. My followers, I earned them. My life, I built it. What have you done except spread your legs and pop out a kid you can't feed?" Gasps from the crowd. Line crossed completely, way too far. A young woman in line finally spoke up. "Hey, that's way too far." Tiffany whirled on her. "Shut up. This is my content." She turned back to Elara, put her hand on Elara's shoulder and pushed, not hard, but dismissive, insulting, like Elara was an object in her way, not a person with a baby strapped to her chest. "Move. You're blocking my shot of the organic section." Elara stumbled back a step. Amara woke up, startled by the movement, and started crying, that confused, scared cry that babies make when they don't understand why their world just lurched. And something in Elara cracked, not broke, cracked, like ice on a lake. Not from the humiliation, not from the poverty, not from the cruelty, but from 6 months of running and struggling and trying to protect her baby from exactly this kind of world, and failing. Because here she was, her daughter crying in a grocery store while strangers filmed and no one helped, and the formula was on the floor, and she had $4.37, and everything was too much. Her hand went to her pocket, to the thing she'd carried for 6 months but swore she'd never use, to the card that represented everything she'd run from, the card that Viktor Volkov had pressed into her palm the night she left, his voice low and certain. "Use this and I'll come. Anywhere. Always." She'd sworn never to use it, sworn to build a life without him, without his power, without his darkness. But Amara was crying, and Tiffany was smiling, and the formula was on the floor, and she was so tired. Elara pulled out the card. It was black. Not credit card black, truly black. Titanium with a matte finish that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No numbers visible, no bank logo, no name. Just a smooth, dark surface that looked expensive and wrong and dangerous all at once.
Now we're getting somewhere. That card, it's not just a credit card, it's a promise, it's a signal. And the man on the other end, let's just say Tiffany just made the biggest mistake of her life. If you can't wait to see who shows up, hit that like button and drop karma in the comments if you're ready to see justice served.
She handed it to the cashier with trembling fingers. "Try this one." The cashier's eyes widened when she saw the card. Her hand actually shook as she took it. This was no ordinary credit card. This was something else, something that made a middle-aged grocery store cashier go pale and pick up the phone with urgency. She scanned it. The POS machine made a different sound, not the error beep, but something else, a loading sound, processing, connecting to something. The screen changed. Authorization required. Please hold. Contacting primary account holder. The cashier spoke into the phone, voice low and urgent. Within seconds, the store manager appeared, young guy, mid-30s, probably made $45,000 a year and thought he ran the place. He took one look at the card and his face went white. He asked Elara, voice changed, formal now, almost fearful. "Ma'am, where did you get this card?" Elara met his eyes. "It's mine. We need to call the number." Because that card wasn't just a payment method, that card was a signal, an alarm, a flare shot into a sky that Viktor Volkov monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 6 months, waiting, hoping, dreading. That card was a promise. Use this and I'll come. And Elara had just used it.
11 blocks away, in a boardroom on the 43rd floor of a building that overlooked the city like a watchful eye, Viktor Volkov sat at the head of a table where men in expensive suits were discussing numbers that would make most people dizzy. Millions moving through shell corporations, investments in legitimate businesses that fronted for less legitimate operations. The kind of meeting where handshakes meant contracts, and contracts meant lives. Viktor's phone was on the table. Always on the table, always within reach, always waiting for a call he both wanted and feared would never come. When it lit up, not ringing but pulsing red, every man in the room saw Viktor Volkov, the phantom, the man who'd built an empire on calculated coldness, stop mid-sentence. His eyes fixed on the screen. Emergency protocol activated. Location, Vanguard Grocers. User, EA. Those initials. EA, Elara Adeyemi, the woman who'd walked out of his life 6 months ago with nothing but a suitcase and a belly full of their daughter. The woman who'd looked at him and said, "I can't do this anymore, Viktor. I'd rather struggle alone than disappear in your shadow." The woman who'd left him with an emergency card and the hope that maybe, someday, she'd need him. She needed him. His face, which had been expressionless during the meeting, didn't change, but something in his eyes did, something primal and desperate and terrifyingly focused. He stood. "Meeting over. Leave." One of the businessmen started to protest. They hadn't finished. There were decisions to be made. Millions hung in the balance. Viktor's eyes snapped to him, just looked at him, and the man physically recoiled, suddenly remembering who he was sitting across from. Not a businessman, not a CEO, the underworld king, the phantom, the man whose enemies had a way of disappearing so thoroughly that even their families stopped asking questions. The room cleared in seconds. Viktor was already moving, phone to his ear, calling his lieutenant, "Dmitry, get everyone, 4 cars, Vanguard Grocers on 5th. Now." Dmitry, who'd served Viktor for 10 years, who'd seen him at his worst after losing Katerina and Sofia, who understood what that red alert meant, asked only one question. "Sir, is it—" She used the card. 2 seconds of loaded silence. Then, "I'll have us there in 8 minutes. Make it 6.
And Viktor Volkov, the man who'd built an empire on patience and calculation, who never acted without thinking 7 steps ahead, who'd trained himself to feel nothing so he could survive losing everything, that man grabbed his suit jacket and ran. He took the stairs, not the elevator, couldn't wait 45 seconds for the elevator, down 43 flights, heart pounding not from exertion, but from fear. What if he was too late? What if something happened and he was too late again? Because 18 months ago, he'd chosen a meeting over his family, chosen "I'll be there in an hour" over "I'm coming home now." And when he finally arrived, Sofia was already gone, and Katerina was fading in his arms, and no amount of money or power or rage could rewind time. He hit the ground floor at a dead sprint. Dmitri was there with 4 black SUVs, engines running, doors open. Viktor didn't ask questions, just got in. They were moving before the door closed. Dmitri drove like a man who understood that minutes mattered. They broke 9 traffic laws, cleared 3 intersections using contacts in the police department who owed favors. The city blurred past, just obstacles between Viktor and Elara, who'd been brave enough to leave him and desperate enough to call him back. "What do we know?" Viktor's voice was controlled, ice over fire. Dmitri, eyes on the road, reported, "Just the location and the card usage, nothing else. Could be financial emergency, could be physical danger, could be... Doesn't matter. We get there, we assess, we respond." They covered 11 blocks in 6 minutes and 14 seconds. Viktor counted every second. Back at Vanguard Grocers, Elara stood at the checkout counter, feeling the weight of what she'd just done settling over her like a physical thing. The store manager was still on the phone, voice urgent and worried. The cashier kept glancing between Elara and the black card like it might explode. Tiffany had stopped filming, some survival instinct finally kicking in, though her phone was still out, still recording, though her hand had dropped to her side. The 8 people in line had gone quiet. The teenagers in the makeup aisle were watching. Everyone sensed it. Something had changed. Something was coming. Then they heard it, outside, the distinctive sound of multiple vehicles arriving in formation, not speeding, but inevitable, precise, military coordination. 4 black SUVs pulled up outside the store, parking in perfect alignment, not in the parking spots, just directly in front of the entrance, blocking traffic, not caring about laws or courtesy or anything except being exactly where they needed to be. The store fell completely silent. Even the muzak seemed to cut out. Someone must have hit the wrong button. Complete, profound silence. The SUV doors opened in unison. 6 men in black suits emerged from 3 vehicles. They moved with purpose, with discipline, with the kind of coordinated precision that comes from training or combat or both. They didn't touch weapons, but everyone could tell they were armed. They positioned themselves, 2 at the entrance, 4 flanking the last vehicle.
The 4 black SUVs, security team in formation. The whole store goes silent. Quick prediction, is this Elara's ex-boyfriend or is this something else? Comment X or bodyguard or your own theory. Let's see who gets it right.
4th door opened. Viktor Volkov stepped out. He was tall, 6'2" in Italian leather shoes that cost more than most people's monthly rent, 3-piece black suit, perfectly tailored, no tie, top button undone like he was interrupted in the middle of something important. Dark hair slicked back without a strand out of place, gray eyes that scanned the store through the windows with the intensity of a predator looking for threats. His face was empty, not calm, empty. The face of someone who'd felt too much and learned to feel nothing. The face of someone who'd burned down buildings and slept soundly. The face of a man who'd held his daughter's body and his wife's hand as she passed and decided that grief was a luxury he couldn't afford anymore. They called him the Phantom, not because he was invisible, but because you never saw him coming until he was already there, until your world was already ending, and when he walked, grown men stepped aside without being asked. The automatic doors didn't open immediately. Someone had hit the emergency lock when the SUVs arrived. Viktor stopped at the doors, looked at them, looked at the security guard hovering near the lock switch, hand shaking. Viktor didn't say anything, didn't need to. Just looked. The security guard unlocked the doors. Viktor entered. His shoes clicked on tile. That was the only sound in the entire store. Click, Click, click. He walked with complete confidence, complete control, like he owned every inch of space his body occupied. Two of his men followed, taking positions at the door. The rest waited outside. An implied threat. This is the polite version. Don't make us show you the other one. Victor's eyes scanned every face in the store, dismissed them all as irrelevant, kept scanning until he saw Elara. And Viktor Volkov, the Phantom, the underworld king worth $2.3 billion, stopped walking. For 3 full seconds, he stopped, just stood there, looking at her exhausted face, at the navy sweater with the stain, at the baby carrier strapped across her chest, at the infant sleeping there, his daughter, the child he'd never met but thought about every single day for 6 months. His jaw clenched, his hands, which had been relaxed at his sides, curled into fists and then deliberately uncurled, forcing control. He said her name. Not a question, a statement, a confirmation, a prayer. Elara. She looked at him, and in her face, Viktor saw everything. Fear, relief, regret, longing, all mixed together in a way that made his chest hurt. 6 months apart, 6 months of her fighting alone, 6 months of him waiting and wondering and checking the emergency notification system every morning like a man checking for signs of life. She needed him. His face, which had been expressionless during the meeting, didn't change, but something in his eyes did, something primal and desperate and terrifyingly focused.
She looked at him, and in her face, Viktor saw everything: fear, relief, regret, longing, all mixed together in a way that made his chest hurt. 6 months apart, 6 months of her fighting alone, 6 months of him waiting and wondering and checking the emergency notification system every morning like a man checking for signs of life. He walked toward her. The crowd parted without being asked. Tiffany stumbled backward, phone forgotten, survival instinct finally understanding, I am in danger. Viktor stopped 2 feet from Elara, close enough to touch, far enough to give her space. His eyes were scanning her, checking for injuries the way soldiers check fallen comrades, looking for blood, bruises, breaks. Seeing the exhaustion in her face, the tears she hadn't let fall, the way she held Amara protectively. Then his eyes found the baby, his daughter, 6 months old, dark hair like her mother, small hands curled into fists, sleeping peacefully, unaware that her father was meeting her for the first time. Something shifted in Viktor's expression. The empty mask cracked, just for a second, and what showed through was pain, raw, unfiltered pain, because looking at this baby, his baby, he saw Sophia, his first daughter, the one he'd failed, the one he'd held as she took her last breath. And now here was another daughter, another chance, another beautiful, perfect, fragile life that he could lose if he wasn't careful. His voice came out rougher than he intended, lower, with something underneath it that might have been emotion. Did someone hurt you?
Did you catch that? The underworld king, the man who just commanded a room without saying a word, completely broke when he saw that baby. That's his daughter, and he just met her for the first time. If that hit you in the feels, drop a heart in the comments. If you're a parent and this scene destroyed you, comment parent. Let's see how many of us are crying right now.
Not what happened or why did you call, just did someone hurt you? Because that's all that mattered. Everything else could wait. But if someone had hurt her, if someone had touched her, if someone had threatened her or his child, Elara started to answer, to say it wasn't like that, she was fine. But Viktor repeated, voice even quieter, more controlled, more dangerous. Did someone hurt you? And in those 4 words, Elara heard the question he was really asking. Tell me who to burn down. Tell me who made you use that card. Tell me whose world needs to end. She glanced at Tiffany, just a flicker of her eyes. That's all it took.
Victor's eyes followed, landed on the blonde woman in the pink designer dress, on the phone in her hand, on the ring light still set up on its tripod, on the Louis Vuitton bag and the statement jewelry, and the kind of casual cruelty that comes from never facing real consequences. His brain processed the scene in seconds. The formula tin on the floor, Tiffany's phone that had been filming, Elara's tears, the baby crying, the crowd watching. He understood. He understood exactly what had happened here. And when Viktor Volkov understood who had humiliated the mother of his child, who had made Elara desperate enough to use that card, who had threatened and mocked and pushed the one person in this world he'd spent 6 months trying not to need, he turned to Tiffany, just looked at her, said one word, "You." Just one word, but Tiffany stumbled backward like she'd been shoved. Her phone clattered to the floor, her ring light toppled. All that influencer confidence, that performance, that carefully constructed persona of someone who always wins, gone, replaced by primal recognition, predator and prey. And that's when Tiffany Westbrook, lifestyle influencer with 2.3 million followers, realized she'd just humiliated the wrong person. The reckoning was about to begin. Victor's first phone call was to a man named Marcus, CEO of Chic Elite Fashion. They'd done business before, the kind where Victor controlled supply chains and Marcus controlled which influencers wore his clothes. The conversation was brief, professional. Marcus asked what grounds justified terminating Tiffany's contract. Victor explained that Chic Elite's Bangladesh operations had some interesting labor practices that wouldn't survive a serious audit. He wasn't threatening, he clarified, just informing Marcus that Chic Elite would be dropping Tiffany Westbrook, or Chic Elite would discover what happens when federal investigators receive detailed documentation. There was a pause on the other end. Then, contract will be terminated within the hour. Tiffany's phone dinged. Notification from Chic Elite. Partnership terminated, effective immediately. Victor was already dialing the second number. Catherine from Luxe Beauty Cosmetics. Same professional tone, same calm explanation. Luxe Beauty purchased their silica from 3 suppliers that Victor happened to control. If they didn't comply, their next shipment would be delayed 6 months, right before their holiday launch. Catherine sighed but agreed to make the call. Another ding. Luxe Beauty partnership canceled. This is what power looks like. Not violence, not yelling, just phone calls, just conversations where one person mentions facts and the other person makes decisions. Victor didn't threaten. He didn't need to. He simply explained reality. Tiffany had humiliated someone he protected, and reality was about to change for her. 2 more calls. Each time, the same calm professionalism. Each time, immediate compliance. 2 more notifications. Tiffany was crying now, full breakdown. The influencer mask completely gone, replaced by a 28-year-old woman watching her entire career disintegrate in real time. She begged him to stop. She'd apologize, she'd delete everything, she'd do whatever he wanted. Victor finally looked at her directly. He told her she wanted attention, she wanted content, she wanted people to see her humiliate someone who couldn't fight back. So he was giving her attention. In approximately 4 minutes, every major brand she worked with would have terminated her contracts. In 6 hours, her story would be on every gossip blog. Influencer bullies single mother gets destroyed by mysterious protector. In 2 days, she'd lose 90% of her followers. In a week, she'd be synonymous with everything people hate about influencer culture.
So here's the question everyone's debating. Did Victor go too far? Tiffany was cruel for 15 minutes. He destroyed her entire career in 4 phone calls. Is that justice or is that excessive? Comment justice if you think she deserved it. Comment too far if you think it's too harsh. Comment not far enough if you want it worse. I want to see where we land on this.
But here's the interesting part, he continued. He could do worse. He could destroy her parents' business. He could ensure she was blacklisted from every platform. He could make her name unemployable. But he wouldn't. Why? Because Elara wouldn't want that. She was better than him. She'd say that Tiffany made a mistake, that she didn't deserve to have her entire life destroyed for 15 minutes of cruelty. She'd say consequences should match crimes. So here were Tiffany's consequences. She lost her income, lost her platform, lost her credibility, but she kept her family, kept her health, kept her ability to rebuild, because that's what Elara would want. And today, what Elara wanted was the only thing that mattered to him. He picked up the formula tin from the floor, handed it to Elara, and said simply, "Let's go." As they walked toward the exit, Elara stopped, turned back to face the crowd that had watched her humiliation in silence. Her voice was clear, addressing everyone. They all watched. 8 people stood in line while someone humiliated her, and not one of them said anything until it was already over. She told them she didn't blame them. Fear was powerful, silence was easy, but she wanted them to remember, today she had someone who came for her, someone who stopped it, but every day there are people like her standing in lines, in schools, in workplaces, being humiliated by people like Tiffany, and nobody came, nobody stopped it. So next time, maybe they could be the one who said, "That's enough," before it got this far. And in that moment, Elara didn't look like a woman who needed saving. She looked like a woman who just taught a room full of people what accountability looks like. Outside, evening was settling in, streetlights flickering on. Victor's SUV waited at the curb, black and gleaming and impossibly out of place in this ordinary parking lot. Victor asked where he could take her. Her apartment? Elara admitted she didn't know. She hadn't thought this through. Victor mentioned that the penthouse still had her things. She'd left so fast. But Elara cut him off. She wasn't going back there. Silence. Victor's face was tight with controlled emotion. Then he offered to arrange a hotel suite anywhere she wanted, ready in 20 minutes. When Elara protested that she couldn't afford it, his voice came out sharp. He wasn't letting her go back to... He stopped himself, started again. He wasn't letting her struggle for money after what just happened. "Please," he said, "let him do this one thing." Amara started fussing. Elara shifted her weight, exhausted, overwhelmed with everything that had just happened. She asked Victor a question that had been burning in her mind for 6 months. Why did he give her that card? Why did he let her leave but give her a way to call him back? His answer was raw, honest, because he couldn't let her go completely, and he couldn't keep her against her will, so he gave her a choice. Use the card and he'll come. Don't use it and he'll stay away. For 6 months, she hadn't used it. He respected that. Even when he saw her building, her jobs, her life, Elara interrupted sharply. He was watching her? Victor's response was careful. He was making sure she was safe. There was a difference. Ilara's voice was firm. No, Victor, there wasn't. That was control. That was exactly what she ran from. Silence. Victor's jaw clenched. Then he said something that surprised her. "You're right." She blinked. In 8 months together and 6 months apart, she'd never heard Viktor Volkov admit he was wrong. He continued, she was absolutely right. He'd told himself he was protecting her, but he was also unable to let go, and that wasn't fair to her. He stepped back, physically and emotionally, and apologized for watching, for not respecting her boundaries, for being unable to let her live without his shadow over it. It was the first time he apologized. Ever. Elara could see it cost him something. Her voice softened. She asked Victor why he came so fast, 6 minutes. His answer, because he spent 6 months imagining every bad thing that could happen to her, every danger, every threat, and when that card activated, all he could think was, what if I'm too late? What if something happened and I'm too late again? His voice cracked on again, the first real sign of a story he hadn't told her. Elara noticed. Again? Victor recovered quickly, saying it didn't matter. She was safe. Amara was safe. That was all that mattered. But Elara pressed. What happened in the 6 months after she left? He looked at her and something in his eyes was broken. Nothing, he said, and everything. Could they not do this here on the street? Amara cried again, hungry, tired, overwhelmed by all the chaos. Elara said she needed to feed her. Victor offered his car. It was quiet, private. They could talk there. Or he could have his driver take her home, and they could talk never. Her choice. Elara looked at Victor, really looked, saw exhaustion matching her own, saw pain she didn't understand, saw the man she'd run from and the man she hadn't wanted to admit she missed. Your car, she said, but only to talk and then you take us home. Relief washed over Victor's face. Whatever you want. Inside the SUV, everything changed. The leather seats, the soundproof walls, the tinted windows. It created a bubble, a private space where the outside world couldn't reach them. Privacy divider up. Just Viktor, Elara, and Amara in the back seat. Elara fed the baby with the formula from the store while Viktor watched. He said she was beautiful, that she had Elara's eyes. Elara smiled slightly and said she had Viktor's stubbornness too. She screamed when she didn't get her way. Victor's first real smile appeared. Wonder where she gets that. For a moment, it was comfortable, easy, like old times. Then Elara brought them back to, "You said again. You said, what if I'm too late again? What did you mean?" The smile vanished. Victor's jaw got tight, but Elara wasn't letting this go. 6 months ago, he was cold, distant, working 20-hour days and coming home like a ghost. She left because she couldn't reach him anymore, because he looked at her like another asset to protect, not a person to love. But today, when he looked at Amara, she saw something break in his face. "What happened, Viktor?" Long silence. Viktor stared out the window at the passing city. This is where the story turns, where revenge stops being satisfying and starts about something deeper, because Viktor Volkov, the Phantom, the man who just destroyed someone's life with 4 phone calls, was about to do the hardest thing he'd ever done: tell the truth. His voice was quiet, not looking at her. "I lost them." "Lost who?" "My first family." Elara went completely still. Amara finished her bottle and fell asleep. This moment, this confession, deserved full attention. Viktor told her about Katerina. They'd married young, too young, built the empire together. When Katerina got pregnant, Viktor thought he could have both, the power and the family. He thought he could keep them safe while still being what he was. His hands clenched as he continued. Their daughter's name was Sophia. She had dark hair, dark eyes. She said "Papa" 3 times before she was lost. "Viktor." 18 months ago, he explained, a rival organization. They wanted to hurt him, but he was untouchable, so they went for what he loved. They broke into his home while he was in a meeting that couldn't wait, that was too important to miss. They made Katerina watch while they... His voice broke. He stopped, breathed, forced control back. By the time he got there, Sophia was already gone. Katerina didn't make it to the hospital. He held her daughter, and she was already gone. Silence. Just the sound of the city through thick glass. Viktor continued flat. He dismantled their organization completely. Every person involved, every person who knew and didn't stop it, every person who benefited. It took him 4 months, and when it was over, he looked around and realized he'd become exactly the monster they'd accused him of being.
He finally looked at Elara, eyes wet with unshed tears. Then she came into his life. At a charity gala his company sponsored. She was working catering, hated every minute of it. When some drunk man grabbed her arm, she dumped champagne on his head, and Viktor thought, she's not afraid. She's not impressed by power. She's real. Elara remembered. He'd offered her a job that night. She'd turned him down 3 times before saying yes because she thought he was trying to buy her. He admitted, "I was, but not how you thought. I was trying to buy back my humanity, because when I looked at you, I felt something I thought was lost with Sophia, hope, the possibility of something good in my life again." They had 8 months together, he continued. 8 months where he pretended he could be normal, where they went to museums and she made him laugh, and he taught her about the art world, and she taught him that not everything had to be a transaction. And then she got pregnant. "And you pulled away," Elara said, crying now. Viktor nodded, because all he could see was Sophia. All he could think was, what if they come for this baby too? What if loving Elara and this child put them in danger? What if he was too late again? So he pulled away, became cold, thought distance would keep her safe. "But it didn't keep me," Elara said. "It pushed me away." Viktor agreed, and she was right to go, because he couldn't give her what she needed. He was drowning and would have pulled her down with him. He wiped his eyes roughly, embarrassed by his own emotion. When she left, he told himself it was good. She was safe from his world. The baby would be safe. He let her go. But he gave her the card because some selfish part of him hoped she'd need him, hoped she'd call, hoped he'd get another chance to do it right. Elara had been quiet, processing everything.
She admitted she didn't know about Katerina and Sofia. He never told her. Viktor's response was pained. How could he? "Hi, I'm Victor. I'm falling for you, by the way. My first family was lost in a tragedy, and I'm fundamentally broken." Elara laughed sadly. "When you put it that way—" Her phone buzzed. Then again, then repeatedly. She checked, and her eyes widened. Articles everywhere about what just happened. Influencer's downfall, karma strikes, Tiffany Luck's life canceled after bullying mother. They were everywhere. And then Elara saw something that made her face fall. Death threats. People were sending Tiffany death threats. Someone had posted her home address. There were already memes. This was too much, she told Viktor. Viktor's response was simple. Tiffany humiliated her. She got humiliated back. But Elara wasn't having it. Tiffany was cruel for 15 minutes. This was her entire life destroyed. Death threats? People showing up at her apartment? This wasn't justice. This was mob violence. And he started it. Viktor's expression tightened. He protected her. By making me complicit in destroying someone? Elara held up her phone, showing particularly vicious comments about Tiffany. She wanted Tiffany to apologize, to feel ashamed, to think twice before treating people like content. She didn't want Tiffany to be unsafe in her own home. After a moment of silence, Viktor asked what she wanted him to do. "Make it stop," Elara said. "Tell people to back off. Use your power to protect her instead of destroy her." Viktor was incredulous. She wanted him to protect the woman who humiliated her? Elara's response cut deep. "I want you to prove you can have power without wielding it like a weapon. I want you to show me that you're more than the phantom, that you're Viktor, the man who picked up a formula tin, the man who just cried telling me about his daughter. That man wouldn't let someone receive death threats over a social media post." Viktor stared at her. "You're asking me to be better than I am." "No," Elara said, firmly. "I'm asking you to be as good as I know you can be."
Wait. Elara is asking Viktor to protect the woman who just humiliated her? The same woman who demanded she bark like a dog on camera? Real talk. Could you do that? Could you show mercy to someone who tried to destroy you? Comment yes if you could forgive. Comment no way if that's too much to ask. And comment maybe if you honestly don't know. This is the real test of character.
Then Viktor pulled out his phone and called Dmitry. He wanted a security detail on Tiffany's apartment. Anyone who showed up threatening her should be documented and reported to police. No confrontation, just make sure she was safe. And put out word through their channels. She made her mistake and paid for it. Anyone who continued to harass her would answer to him. When he hung up and looked at Elara, she gave him a small smile. "Better." "It's a start," he agreed. The conversation shifted. Viktor asked what happened now. Elara said he should take them home, and she needed to think about everything. Viktor pressed. 6 months of silence, 1 emergency, 1 conversation, and now back to silence? Elara's frustration showed. He'd just told her his wife and daughter were lost in a tragedy, and that he pulled away from her because he was terrified of losing her too. She couldn't process that in a car. She needed time. Viktor asked how much time. Elara didn't know. Was there a schedule for processing trauma? A timeline for deciding if she could trust someone who watched her from the shadows for 6 months? Viktor conceded it was fair. Then he asked the question that mattered. What did she want? The answer poured out of him raw and honest. He wanted to know his daughter. He wanted to wake up not drowning. He wanted to look at Elara without feeling like he was about to lose something precious. He wanted to be the man who picked up a formula tin, not the man who destroyed lives with phone calls. He wanted to be someone Sofia would be proud of, and someone Amara wouldn't be afraid of. Elara's eyes filled with tears. "You're Amara's father, aren't you? That's why you looked at her like that." Viktor nodded, unable to speak. Elara explained she didn't write it on the birth certificate. She left that space blank because she didn't know if he'd want to be part of their lives. Viktor asked if he could hold her, just for a minute. Elara carefully passed sleeping Amara to him. He cradled her like she was made of glass, both hands supporting her, his face showing wonder and grief all at once. He whispered to the baby, "Hi, Amara. I'm your dad. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I missed your birth and your first smile and all those moments. I'm so sorry." His voice broke. Tears fell. This giant of a man, this underworld king, crying while holding his daughter, completely undone.
If you're not crying right now, you're stronger than me. This man lost his first daughter. He missed the birth of his second, and now he's holding her for the first time, apologizing for not being there. If powerful men showing vulnerability makes your heart hurt in the best way, you need to subscribe. That's what we do here. Stories where strength and softness can coexist. Hit that button.
Elara put her hand on his shoulder. He looked up at her, face wet. She told him gently, Amara was 6 months old. He hadn't missed everything. He missed the beginning, but he was here now. The question was, would he still be here when it was hard, when Amara was teething and screaming at 3 a.m., when Elara was exhausted and snapping at him, when his world called and demanded he choose between them and his empire? "I'll choose you, every time, I swear." Elara's response was gentle but firm. He couldn't know that. He couldn't promise he wouldn't fail, but he could promise to try, and he could promise that if he started pulling away again, she'd call him on it instead of running away. Viktor started to agree, then stopped himself. "That's not fair to put on you. Forget I said that." Elara asked what she needed from him. What would make her feel safe enough to let him try? Her answer? Therapy. He needed to talk to someone about Katerina and Sofia, about the tragedy, about the guilt he was drowning in. She couldn't be his therapist. He couldn't fix him. Viktor started to protest, but she continued. What work did he think she needed to do? He surprised her by actually asking. Elara admitted she needed to figure out why she ran instead of fighting, why she assumed he'd never change instead of asking him to change, why she took the easy way out and then resented him for letting her go. This stopped Viktor. "You resented me for letting you go?" "Part of me did, yes. Part of me wanted you to fight for me, to say, no, don't leave, let's fix this. But you just let me walk away."
Because you asked me to. I know, and that's my issue to work through, that I wanted you to respect my choice and also ignore it. That's not fair. That's not healthy. That's me being as broken as you are. They looked at each other, both crying, both broken, both honest. Viktor said softly, "So we're both disasters." Elara laughed through tears. "Apparently. What do we do about it?" "We try," Elara said, slowly, carefully, with help from people who know what they're doing. Viktor's driver had been circling while they talked, giving them privacy. Now he pulled up to Elara's apartment building. Modest, safe, nothing fancy. Viktor looked at it and asked if this was where she lived. Elara was defensive. It was clean, safe, it was hers. Viktor clarified he wasn't judging. He just wanted to see where his daughter slept. Could he come up? Just to see. He wouldn't stay. Elara hesitated, then nodded. Inside, the apartment told a story. Small, one-bedroom, baby things everywhere. Bouncer, changing table, bottles drying on the counter. Elara had given the bedroom to Amara and slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. Viktor noticed immediately. "You gave her the bedroom." "Of course," Elara said. "She needs her own space." "Where do you sleep?" She gestured at the couch. Viktor's face showed pain, but Elara cut him off before he could speak. "Don't. I chose this. I knew what leaving meant. I'm not asking for pity." Viktor explained it wasn't pity. She was working 2 jobs, raising a baby alone, sleeping on a couch. How was this better than... "Viktor, I'd rather struggle as myself than live comfortably as your shadow." That landed hard. Viktor asked quietly, "Is that what I made you feel like? A shadow?" Elara sat on the couch, exhausted. Sometimes, yes, when he'd introduce her as just Elara with no other context at events, when decisions about their life were made in meetings she wasn't invited to, when she had to ask permission to visit her own mother because he needed to assess security risks.
He protected her so much she forgot how to protect herself. Viktor sat across from her, head in hands. He didn't know. She never said. Elara tried, she explained, but he was drowning in grief and she was trying to be strong enough for both of them. Then she got pregnant and realized she didn't want to raise their child like this, didn't want Amara to think love meant losing herself. Viktor asked what she would have wanted, if she could have had it any way. Elara stopped, surprised. No one had asked her this. Partnership, she said, not protection. She wanted him to ask her opinion before making decisions about their lives, to feel like his equal, not his dependent, to know about Katerina and Sofia not because she dragged it out, but because he trusted her with his pain. Viktor admitted, "I didn't know how to do that." "I know," Elara said, "and I didn't know how to ask for it. We were both operating from fear. You from I'll lose you if I get too close, me from I'll lose myself if I stay, and we both chose wrong. What's the right choice?"
Elara stood, went to the bedroom, returned with paper and pen. "You want to try again? Here are my terms."
She started writing while Viktor watched. 1. He goes to therapy, once a week minimum for 6 months, someone licensed who specializes in trauma. Viktor agreed. 2. He doesn't make decisions about her life or Amara's without consulting her first. Not where they live, not security, not schools, nothing. They discuss everything. Viktor asked what if he thought she was making an unsafe choice. She could tell him his concerns, Elara said, but ultimately she got equal vote. If they couldn't agree, they'd compromise or table it. No unilateral decisions. Viktor struggled, but agreed. 3. He doesn't use his power to solve her problems unless she explicitly asks. That includes money, connections, intimidation. She needed to know she could handle her own life. Viktor asked what if she was in danger. Then call the police like a normal person, Elara said. Viktor started to protest. His world didn't have police, but Elara cut him off. Maybe that was something to work on. She wouldn't bring Amara into a world where violence was the first response. After a long pause, Viktor agreed. Term 3. He'd ask first. 4. They start slow. Don't live together right away. Date like normal people. He visits Amara regularly, but doesn't move in until they're both sure. Viktor asked how slow. Elara didn't know, however long it took. Viktor was frustrated. That's not fair, asking him to wait indefinitely. Elara was firm. She was asking him to earn this. He didn't get his family back because he showed up once and cried. He got his family back because he consistently showed up and did the work. Viktor paced, clearly struggling. What if I can't do this? What if I fail? Then you fail and we figure out what comes next, Elara said. But Viktor, you have to try. Actually try, not just performing trying because you think that's what I want to see. He stopped pacing. You're asking me to trust you. I'm asking us to trust each other. Long pause. Then Viktor came back, sat down, took the pen. My turn. My terms. Elara wasn't expecting this, but she nodded. 1, Viktor wrote, she tells him when he's messing up, doesn't run, doesn't shut down. If he's reverting to old patterns, she calls it out immediately. Deal, Elara said. 2, she accepts help when she needs it. Not money without asking, but if she's drowning, she lets him throw her a rope. Pride is fine, martyrdom helps no one. Elara bristled, but reluctantly agreed. 3, she tells him about Amara. Everything he missed. First smile, first laugh, weird things she does, what she likes. He wants to know his daughter and needs Elara to help him catch up. Elara softened. That's sweet. Okay. 4, 6-month review. They check in after 6 months. If this isn't working, they reevaluate together, not her running in the night while he pretends he's fine. Elara's eyes filled with tears. He'd learned. Deal. They both looked at this paper. Their contract, their attempt, their hope. Viktor asked if they should sign it. Elara laughed. It wasn't legally binding. Viktor said no, but it was binding to them. That mattered more. They both signed. Elara Adeyemi, Viktor Volkov.
They're writing a literal contract for their relationship. Boundaries, expectations, consequences. Honest question, would this actually work in real life? Could you negotiate love like a business deal? Comment yes if you think clear terms save relationships. Comment no if you think love should be natural, not negotiated. I genuinely want to know what you think.
As Victor stood to leave, he stopped at the door. Could he ask one more thing? Elara waited. Tell him about the day Amara was born. Elara wasn't sure, but Victor pressed. He said he needed to know what he missed. Start with the most important day. Elara took a breath. She went into labor at 3 a.m., 3 weeks early, terrified because she was alone, no car, and she'd read horror stories about complications. She called an ambulance, felt stupid doing it, like she was being dramatic, but the EMTs were kind. An older woman held her hand the whole ride and told her about her 5 kids, made her feel like she could do this. Labor was intense, she continued, more than she had imagined. She kept thinking, I'm doing this alone. Everyone here has partners and family, and I'm just alone. But then Amara came out. They put her on her chest, so small, so perfect. And despite what they say about newborns not being able to see, Elara swore Amara looked at her. And she thought, okay, we're not alone. We have each other, and that's enough. She held her daughter and named her Amara because it means grace in Igbo, and she needed grace. They both did. And then she took a picture and almost sent it to Victor, had her phone in her hand, text half written, "You have a daughter." But she didn't, because she thought, what if he doesn't care? What if he's relieved we're gone? Victor was crying silently now, hands covering his face. When he dropped them, his voice was muffled. I would have come. If you'd sent that text, I would have been there in 20 minutes. I know that now, Elara said softly, but I didn't know that then. Victor's face was wet, crying the way you do when something breaks inside. I missed it. I missed her being born. I missed her first day. I'll never get that back. Elara started to apologize, but Victor stopped her. Don't apologize. She did what she thought was right. He gave her every reason to believe he didn't want this. Amara woke up from her nap, timing perfect, seeing both adults cry. Hey, baby girl, we're okay, just adult stuff. Victor asked if he could hold her while she was awake this time. Elara acknowledged. Victor took the baby carefully. Amara looked at him with serious baby eyes. He told her quietly, I'm going to tell you something, and you won't understand it yet, but someday you'll know. I had a daughter before you. Her name was Sophia. She'd be your big sister, and I couldn't save her. I tried. I was too late, and that broke something in me. The baby watched him, processing sounds, even if not words. But then you were born, and I didn't know you existed for 6 months. And today, when your mom used a card I gave her, I got to meet you. And you're so beautiful. You're so perfect. And I'm terrified. Terrified I'll fail you like I failed Sophia. Terrified I'll hurt your mom by being too broken to love her right. Terrified you'll grow up and realize your dad is someone who destroys lives when he's angry. But I'm here. And I'm going to try. I'm going to try so hard to be someone you can be proud of. Amara reached up, grabbed his finger, cooed. Babies don't judge. They don't care about your past or your empire or your mistakes. They just grab your finger and hold on. And sometimes that's all the forgiveness you need to start believing you deserve it. Victor pulled Amara close, closed his eyes, just breathed. Thank you for letting me hold her. She's your daughter, Elara said.
You don't need permission. Yes, I do, because you're her mom and you decide who's safe for her, and I need to earn being safe. This floored Elara. He got it, really got it. You're already safer than you think. Broken doesn't mean dangerous, it just means human. Eventually, Victor handed Amara back and stood to leave. Elara asked when she'd see him again. Victor turned it back. When did she want to see him? Tomorrow? You could come for dinner. Nothing fancy, just time together. Victor's hope was visible. I'd like that. What time? 6. But Victor, it's SpaghettiOs and grilled cheese. I'm not cooking fancy. That sounds perfect. At the door, Victor stopped one more time. Elara, I meant what I said. Every word. I'm going to do better. I know. I believe you. He left. She closed the door, leaned against it, slid down to sit on the floor with Amara in her lap. Well, that was intense. Your dad is complicated, but I think he might be worth the complication. What do you think? Amara babbled. Yeah, that's what I thought too.
She sat there in her small apartment, holding her daughter, and for the first time in 6 months thought, maybe we can do this. Maybe broken people can help each other heal. Maybe love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. That night, Viktor went home to his penthouse and didn't sleep. He called a therapist he'd researched 3 months ago but never contacted, made an appointment for Monday. Then he sat in his daughter Sophia's old room, untouched for 18 months, and finally started packing it away. Not throwing out, just making space. Because you can't hold on to the past and build a future at the same time. Sometimes you have to grieve and let go, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. 6 months later. Morning lights streamed through windows of an apartment that was bigger than Elara's old place, but not as imposing as Viktor's penthouse. Something in between, something they'd chosen together. Elara stood in the kitchen making coffee. Viktor walked out of the bedroom carrying 1-year-old Amara, both of them with bedhead that made Elara smile. Viktor said Amara had opinions about breakfast. The baby babbled, "Ba ba ba, bebe." "She wants berries," Elara translated. "They're in the fridge." "How do you speak baby?" Viktor asked, getting the berries. "I'm her mom. It's my superpower." Viktor put Amara in her high chair, gave her berries. She immediately smashed one and laughed. Viktor shook his head. "She's chaos." "She's one," Elara said. "That's the job description." Viktor came to Elara, wrapped arms around her from behind, chin on her shoulder. 6 months are up. "They are." "I have my review prepared." Elara turned in his arms. "Do you?" "Things I did well, consistently showed up, went to therapy, asked before making decisions, only used my power when explicitly asked, successfully kept child alive for 6 months. That's a good list." "Things I did poorly, still have control issues, still sometimes try to solve problems with money instead of conversation, still terrified every time Amara sneezes that it's something serious. Also honest. Overall grade? Solid B+. Viktor feigned offense. B+? You lost points with the incident with my mom. I apologized for that. I didn't know hiring security for her was overstepping. She lives in Nigeria, Viktor. You hired a bodyguard for my mother, in Lagos, without asking me. In my defense, Lagos has high crime rates. And she's a grown woman who's lived there for 60 years. Old habits." Viktor was chastened. "Old habits. I'm working on it." They kissed, soft and domestic. Then Viktor said it was his turn to grade her. Things she did well, set boundaries and enforced them, communicated when he was messing up, let him in when it was hard to trust, enrolled in school, told her mother about them despite being terrified of judgment, let him co-parent despite every instinct saying he'd revert to controlling behavior. And things I did poorly? You still sometimes don't ask for help when you need it, still carry too much alone because you're afraid of being dependent, still haven't fully forgiven yourself for leaving, but you're working on it. So overall, I pause. A+, perfect score. That's great inflation. That's me being in love with you. Amara threw a berry at them, direct hit on Viktor's head. They both turned. "Amara!" She laughed, delighted with herself. Viktor said to Elara, "Your daughter is a menace." Our daughter is a menace." They both laughed, cleaned berry out of his hair. Later that day, at the park, Amara was on the swings. Viktor pushed her gently while Elara watched. He asked what the verdict was. 6 months was up. What happened next? Elara said she thought they should keep going, with new terms. No more reviews, no more contracts. They just do this. Trust that they'll both keep trying. Trust that if it gets hard, they'll work through it instead of running or shutting down. "That's scarier than a contract," Viktor said. "I know, but that's what love is, jumping without a safety net. What if I fail? Then we deal with it together. Viktor, you spent 18 months punishing yourself for what happened to Sophia. You spent 6 months terrified of failing me. At some point, you have to forgive yourself. You have to believe you deserve this." Viktor watched Amara on the swings, laughing. "Do you think Sophia would have liked her little sister?" Elara was surprised by the question. I think she'd have loved her. I think so too. I want to marry you. Elara was careful. Viktor, I know, rushing, traditional, probably some control issues in there, but I'm not asking today. I'm just telling you the truth. That's what you wanted, right? Honesty? Always. Then honestly, I want to marry you. I want Amara to have both parents under one roof with rings on fingers. I want to wake up next to you when we're 60 and argue about breakfast. I want the whole messy, complicated, sometimes annoying partnership. When you're ready, no pressure, just putting it out there. Elara took his hand. Ask me again in a year. A year? I want to finish my degree. I want to see you make it past the first year mark without a major crisis. I want to see we can survive holidays with both our families. And then, if we still like each other, she smiled, ask me again, and I'll probably say yes. Probably? Nothing's guaranteed. Keeps you motivated. They kissed. Amara squealed from the swings, wanting attention.
So that's how Elara used a card that signaled for help. Viktor showed up, Tiffany learned consequences exist, and two broken people chose to heal together instead of alone. If this story moved you, and I hope it did, here's what I need. Hit that subscribe button. We post new emotional romance stories every single week. Stories with protective heroes, strong heroines, and love that's worth fighting for. Drop a comment telling me what was your favorite moment? Viktor's entrance, Elara's defiance, the baby reveal? I read every single comment. And most importantly, share this with someone who needs to hear a story about second chances and choosing love even when it's hard. Next week's story, a billionaire CEO discovers the cleaning lady he's been falling for is actually an undercover investigator sent to take him down. You won't want to miss it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in these stories. I'll see you next week.